All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Digital Marketing Agency Builders podcast. On this episode, I have with me Zhang, the founder of XYZ Advantage, a performance marketing agency that works with some of the fastest growing brands and agencies. Yan is an incredible leader, as well as an expert in agency partnerships. XYZ specializes in performance-based marketing, bottom-of-funnel driven SEO, and high ROI email marketing. In addition to running a highly successful agency, Yan's professional career has included titles such as financial analyst, marketing consultant, manager, and of course, fearless entrepreneur. Yan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm excited.
I am pumped too. We're going to dive straight in. Tell me, when did you launch XYZ Advantage?
In early 2015, so almost 7 years now.
Hey, we're in the same launch year. I launched in 2015 as well. That's super, super cool.
High five to that.
Yes, super high five to that. So what did your life look like before the agency? Like, I always love to talk a little bit about before agency world too, so people can kind of hear, where you came from and why you went that direction.
Sure. It was quite a journey. Because long story short, I was in finance. You heard the title, one of those were financial analyst. That was what I was doing. Then I kind of learned marketing when I was in the MBA program and worked for in a few different companies, agency, startup. So after my last job within a startup company, I had some two wonderful Time Warner Cable executives. And I tried to go back to corporate world after that point, and it just didn't work out. So we had a conversation. I was asking my old boss, like, what should I do? And they surprised me and asked whether I wanted to take over an agency that they both owned. So starting XYZ was like having an amazing amount of confidence to begin with from somebody else. And that made me believe if anybody could do it, I could definitely do it, and I'm going to do it well.
Yeah. So you took over XYZ Advantage?
I didn't. XYZ Advantage is all me because we later evaluated, and I didn't want to get involved with that agency.
Oh, okay.
That was much more tacky than marketing, and a lot marketing metrics and the old team just didn't seem to be on the same page of where I wanted XYZ to be. But it was still, that was like what kickstarted my passion, and almost somebody else told me, try do this and you did really well with the other project and then we'll be on your board. And they're still on my board of advisors. So I have some amazing mentors there.
That's fantastic. So you kind of had like a kick of confidence from someone else saying that you could do it, which ignited your own flame and like, oh, wait, if they think I can do this, maybe I can do this. And then you kind of have that confidence to then go forward into your own, like if they thought I could do it for their agency, I feel like I can probably do it for my own kind of thing.
It was definitely a lot of what are you talking about at the beginning?
Yeah.
Because before that, I was always on W-2s, paychecks every 2 weeks or every month. It's a very different lifestyle. So I didn't want to consider entrepreneurship for a very long time. I was with a startup company. I saw how much hats the CEOs, the founders have to wear, and it wasn't that appealing to me at that time. But it was that kind of conversation once it gets started. I'm one of those people that don't ever want to say no to everything. I stand behind, there's no absolute truth on most of the options that appear to us. So if I never tried this, I know I would regret later down the line. I just didn't want that to be the reason as why I'm not doing it, not because I couldn't. If I find out I'm just not a good fit, that's fine. But if I never try it, it's going to linger and haunt me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny, we have that in common too. I worked for a series of startup companies as well as like you did prior to starting my digital marketing agency. And I was always in that environment of entrepreneurship and like that fast-paced world, which I actually loved. And I thrived in because I thought it was so much cooler than like being in like a giant corporate office where, you know, the department head that you're in and, like the cubicle next to you, but like nothing really beyond that. And so I really enjoyed that startup vibe. But I think one of the big things for me that I had in the back of my head was I falsely believed that like you said, the paycheck thing, like to me, that was preached to me growing up, that was security and like that was safety. And going out into entrepreneurship, is more risky. And that's kind of how my head looked at it. But getting into entrepreneurship and moving down that line, I learned really quickly that it was actually the opposite, that having multiple clients pay you was actually way less riskier than having one job that pays you one paycheck. And then realized really quickly like that, because that job could later went off tomorrow, whereas the chances of all of your clients laying you off at one time are really low. So I learned that, I had that misconception. Did you have that misconception as well? Or what in your head made you hesitate from diving into the agency space?
I love that you do that kind of analysis later on, as this is contradictory to what the earlier belief is. And I think to a degree, I agree to that. Now, I definitely think it's very much true. I can never have this much working for somebody else. Maybe if I were somehow CEO of the bigger brand, then yeah, that's a similar kind of career path. But what really hit me at that time, my family actually is split differently. My dad is a very successful entrepreneur. He has two large companies, both in China for financing and furniture manufacturing. And my mom worked for the government her entire life. So it's one side super stable, that kind of all the benefits with paychecks and everything. And on the other side is the completely opposite of running around. I pretty much never saw my dad growing up. So that experience of not having him always there was actually the reason I didn't want to try entrepreneurship. It wasn't the lifestyle, or when you were in the MBA program, I feel like at that time I had a huge ego, very entitled, just wanting the world to give you this and that, and the kind of just so much work and hassle involved with entrepreneurship wasn't that appealing. But when I was in school, I was also working full-time for a Chinese bank. At that time, they sponsored me. So it was all paid for, and I pretty much worked my ass off 24/7. So working for a corporate was just boring. I feel like I had my retirement life for a few months, and I didn't know what was going on. I got bored. Everything seems dull. So once I started thinking about what this could be, it was exhilarating. I think.
Did you have those moments? Because I did, and I think a lot of other people in the space are now as well in corporate world. But did you have those moments of like, wow, I'm a grown up, I'm an adult, and like this is it, like this is all that there is, like this is what I wake up to every day, like is it, like I don't know, I had those realizations constantly where I'm just like, oh my god, like this is it for the next 35, 40 years, and I just like was deeply unsatisfied.
I felt I was an adult when I was 15, probably. I always connected better with people that's more mature in their thoughts. But when I realized I have to make decisions for my own life, it was both scary and exciting at the same time. I think everyone probably have one of those moments. It's just whether you allow it and explore it, or you to continue on your path because it's safe. Let's face it, so many people hate their job. It's not that they don't want changes. They're probably just scared of closing that door, because the saying of when the door closes, many opens isn't the saying you won't experience until you're in it and until you're brave enough to just give it a shot. I think opening doors are much easier than closing it. But if you're not closing, sometimes you're also not allowing yourself to be in front of other opportunities either.
Totally. And I mean, and also there, a lot of us have that a misunderstanding of what the word safe means anyway. right? Like I mentioned before. And you also don't have to get like crazy risky with launching a digital agency. That's one of the things I love about this business model is it's all done online. And you can get started in your spare time. I started my agency while I was still working full time in a marketing department for the energy shop company that I was working for. It was my last 9 to 5 job. And I like my goal, double the income outside that I was making in my one paycheck before I could make any moves or let anybody know what I was doing. And I achieved that goal all while having that, quote unquote, safe paycheck, right? So like you don't have to, when people, for those of you guys listening to us, you don't have to quit your job like a madman and then jump into the abyss and hope that, you get some clients to pay you before, you get kicked out of your house. Like you can do this, on the side and build it at, more of the freelancer path like I did. And then once you're making enough income to then leave your job or to pitch them like I did to become your next client, then you can make those bigger risks, right? With potentially losing them. And, like in my case, I lost the job at that point when I did take that risk, but it was a risk I was prepared to take at that point because I had built the income streams from, moving into the agency side. So it's not something where you have to take on massive amounts of risk, but ultimately, like for a lot of people like myself and Yen, like it's a path that's well worth it to get out of a corporate situation that's just not fulfilling in any way. Yen, what did the first 3 months of your agency look like? Because mine is completely different than where I'm at right now, right? So I think it's really cool for our listeners to get an idea what that beginning phase looks like in your agency.
Absolutely. And before I say that, I just want to say I totally agree with you. I think agency model is one of those low risk, high reward type of business model. All you really need for marketing is the computer and your brain, pretty much.
Yes. And a willingness to learn and a dedication to yourself and your business for sure.
Exactly. Yep, that part. Even for the program that you have, which is an amazing community, it's not that you can just hand it over to Tyler's team and say, now I'm sitting on the beach and hoping everything's running. To a degree, it is, everything can be running. You can be doing that, but if you're not understanding what you're building, it's really hard to get to that point and can relax, at least for my personality. But the first 3 months, I felt scary and excited, like I was saying.
Yeah.
It was a huge change for sure. I was super lucky. I pretty much met my first power partner within the month when I started XYZ. We had kicked off with one of my board meeting with my advisors, and it was amazing. I had one of the best financial professors in Denver that was on the board to kind of lay out those are the margins you'll be dealing with, and this is the kind of clients that helps fuel your growth. I have the previous CMO of Samsonite that was kind of laying out those are your different channels and where we've seen your strength. And I have the other bosses.
What an amazing start.
It was absolutely awesome. Just that gave me so much confidence and know, even if I get a huge client, I couldn't close them. I know I could ask that question to any of them and get an answer of how do I handle it. And then
how did you get these big players on your board?
I'm a relationship people person, I think. It just throughout my years, I'm always the kind of person I want to make sure I learn from you, I listen to you, and also there's something we can build on to. Some of those, I heard a lot of conversation of people say there's nothing there for me. I think there is always something, even we're not working together. I built those relationships along the way and they paid off significantly.
So you had these relationships prior to starting your agency, and then when you started your agency, you approached these people and asked them to be on your board?
Yes, I asked 5 of them and 4 said yes. And the 5th one was more, he's now CEO of the massive company, just his schedule doesn't make it. So it's one of the situations I wasn't sure any of them would said yes. And when every single one said yes and committed to meeting with me every quarter, it's just like, well, if you guys are on board, there's no reason for me not to do this.
100%. I think there's a lesson there in just ask, right? Like a lot of people would never even take the time to look around their initial network and see what important people are there, and then take that next step to ask them to be a part of something that they're growing. Because maybe they think they're going to say no, or maybe they will feel weird asking that, or whatever. But you know, you had that boldness in you to A, first recognize the important people around your circle already, and then B, go ahead and take the leap and you know, ask them to be a part of your new agency. And lo and behold, you got a bunch of yeses that you didn't even expect to get. And then from that, you're saying that one of the board members introduced you to your first big client?
No, I didn't say that.
No. So what did you mean by power partnership?
That was actually outside of the board. It's in a connection I met through one of the first designer, brilliant guy. And so my first power partner, she just sold her agency to her staff at that point. But then we met. It was supposed to be in a 30-minute conversation, coffee, and we ended up chatting for 3 hours, just connected instantly.
Yeah.
And she decided she wasn't ready to retire and she wanted to just work with me on some deals. And at that time I had a client that was in a prospect. I wasn't sure I was able to close them. So I invited her, like you said, just asked, would you be willing to join me on that sales call? And she did. And we closed them pretty much right there. And it was my first, I don't even remember, 30, 40K client. It was just it came on board and she became my mentor, my friend, my colleague, my strategist, my closer. That was when I realized a lot of this is not so much as you do it yourself, it really is to leverage that kind of partnership. And if I didn't have any of those, I think it would be a quite different path. Not that, you know, things are not working out. I'm sure the universe will be working out in a different way, but because I'm so blessed by all of them, it just it was something I wanted to tell everybody, kind of like why you wanted to have your partners or have the community. Because most of the time agencies don't fail or disappear because you don't have a client. If you don't have a client, just go get one. The agencies end or companies end when the founders burned out. There's no passion left. You don't want to keep going at this path anymore. That's when most companies close door.
Yeah. So these partnerships have turned out to be very lucrative for you. Where did you get your first leads in these first 1 to 3 months? Like how did you get on the phone with this, you know, 30K deal?
That 30K deal wasn't a referral, just many people knew what I did and they wanted to see what I could do. And that was easy. But in the first year, I would say I did a lot of deal, kind of doing RFPs and lead gen, mostly through local network. And at that time, I was dipping my toes into a little bit of paid advertising, but it just, I was cheap for sure at that time.
No, and that's fine. I mean, that's what bootstrapping is. And that's one of the really great things about this industry is that you can bootstrap it while you're still working a job and getting a paycheck and still become massively successful. That's super, super awesome. So, I mean, same thing for me in the first 1 to 3 months, like it was all like my local network and connections and what relationships I already had established, and then reaching out to them to let them know, like, you know, look, I'm launching my own agency and this is our capabilities. You know, we use social strategy, we do, you know, social media management, content management, Facebook ads, Google ads. And at that time, in you know, 2015, 2016, there's still plenty of businesses that need to get better into social and better into paid ads, but it was an astronomical amount of businesses that still really needed to get into that service at that point because it was still so much younger than it is now. And so the opportunity was just so bountiful. And don't get me wrong, if you're listening to this episode, the opportunity is still massive today. There are so many clients out there that need your help in the marketing space, but even exponentially more than as well. So, reaching out to the network and finding out that, for me, one of my first clients was the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. They're the world's biggest HIV organization, like the world's biggest, massive multi-billion-dollar, nonprofit that just so happened to be local to my area. And I just so happen to have connections in there as friends, right? And I used to volunteer with them. And come to find out that they don't really have like a robust social team for their, southern region in the United States. And I approached them and was able to get that contract through my own network. And to this day, I'm still working with them on that social strategy. And I've never let them go. I've been with them for over 6 years now, which is, just a fantastic run. But, you can leverage those. I think your story is so great because mine is very similar to that, you don't have to, spend a ton of money and, go crazy to find your first few clients. Oftentimes there's low-hanging fruit that's right in front of your face. If you just look around at the connections that you already have and let your whole circle, friends and family, I'm sure if you're listening to this episode, you have friends and family members that are business owners. You do, guaranteed. There's so many business owners out there. If you just let them know about your services and you already leverage that connection, that friendship that you have with them, you can get a client just like that and start building from the ground up and quickly replace, a 9-to-5 style income. So I really love that you shared that about your first 3 months, because mine actually was very similar. What's your favorite part now about running XYZ Advantage? Because, you grow so much since the first 1 to 3 months. There's, you learn what parts of the business you like, what parts you don't like. So tell us, Jan, what parts do you like?
A lot of it probably has to do with I just really wanted to build a company that I want to work with. My last job at a corporate job, it was a little bit interesting. One of the executives there once told me, no matter what the number presents, he always has no way of spin it to a good story for the client or to the CEO of the company. And that was really off-putting to me. And coming from the finance world and then the marketing, I respect the numbers. I never spin it. If something's wrong, we all need to address it. So I wanted to build my company the way that it really benefits other clients. And also, at the end of the day, it is your company. If you are not making it worth your time, then how do you convince other people to work for you? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think that's a really great macro perspective. I think what I'm looking for is more of a micro perspective. So for example, me, I really enjoy the content stuff. So like, I like getting on coaching calls and helping people and talking with the clients. I like being in Slack. It sounds so weird, but I actually like being in Slack, like helping clients, get past, hurdles that they're facing in their business. I love this stuff, like podcasting and talking to incredible agency owners like yourself in the space and networking and the whole branding side of it and the personal branding side of it. Loving that as we go into, as we've been going through 2021 and into 2022. And I'm really learning that I love that side of the business, the branding side, the client facing and everything. One of the things I don't like is I don't like sales. I never really have. I've never been a big fan of sales calls, although I know how critical that they are. And that's why my program puts in commission-based closers for our elite members and helps them find those people that do love that aspect. And I think a lot of success in agencies is really finding like what parts of the business do you really get up and like enjoy. Like I'm really like I was pumped to get on this episode with you because I knew we were going to have an awesome conversation. And then there's other parts of the business where I'm like, I have to go into QuickBooks and separate my expenses and go through those line items. Hate that part, right? So like, what parts of running XYZ is your favorite to do?
The actual operation, I think I still enjoy quite a bit of the marketing side, the strategy, figuring out what's going on, if something's not working, what are the hypotheses and how do we attack it, those part excites me.
Strategy's awesome. Love that.
I think with a lot of agency owners, you probably feel the same. You like a lot aspect, but then at the end of the day, someone in your team are doing better than you on some of that. So you allocate that, delegate to them. And so nowadays, even though I love strategy, I'm not the only strategist in the team. And I love PPC, but I almost never actually touch an account. I love SEO, but I don't do our own any aspect on the technical on page, off page optimization. It just I love to see how things are done, and then I read tons of reports and make sure I connect my team with the right resources and know what's next to focus on. That's in a large part of my day-to-day nowadays.
Yeah,
I think it's in a journey. Like you said, everyone became an owner in different ways. You can quit your job, start this, or you can keep your job. What you described, your journey was probably desirable to most people. That's in a low risk. Let me try it. If this works out, it makes more, I'll quit my job. If it doesn't, who cares? I tried it and closed that door. I think similar as you pick and choose what you want to do is to see if you're the best doing that job. If you find somebody else that's better, then give it to somebody else. I don't touch QuickBook or accounting. Even I have a finance background, it just wasn't something I enjoy.
Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree. And then you also, I mean, you're brilliant. You brought in people, as have I, to do aspects of your business that are much better at those aspects than you are. And that's the power of really bringing in different partners and contractors and employees that are just, really excellent at what they do. And it's also a really great, and I brought this up on the coaching call last night for the DFY agency members, and it actually is a really good selling point when you're trying to sell agency services to a client, right? Because oftentimes businesses are weighing the two options of either hire an agency or hire an in-house person, right? And that one in-house person is only going to be limited to what that one in-house person can do. But you as an agency have a wide range of experts behind you, an expert in PPC, an expert in SEO, an expert in content writing. So when the business decides to go with the agency, even if it may be a little bit more than the salary, or sometimes it's even less, which is crazy for some of the salaries that CMOs are getting, you get so much more expertise and so many more eyes on your marketing campaigns for your business by going with the agency over the employee. It's really the power of building a really strong team. And I think you've definitely done that with XYZ.
Do you watch the show like Kitchen Nightmare, Hell's Kitchen?
Many years ago. Is that the one with Ramsey?
Yeah, I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan. He's amazing being the chef, but it's kind of the same thing. You could be a great chef, really good at cooking or baking breads, and suck at accounting or other aspect. And those are the shows that kind of goes in and help somebody to fix their restaurants, or the master chef is trying to find the kind of chef that's really good. If you want to scale, Gordon Ramsay didn't build his empire by cooking in every single restaurant.
No, definitely not.
And he probably has executive chefs that are way more brilliant than he is. And that's in the path. I think it kind of depends. If you want to grow, you're wanting to have a team and really scale, then take your own advice. We're all marketing people. We wouldn't tell our clients just to be yourself and trying to take on more things and sleep less, eat less, and take more time from your day and grow that way. I think we a lot of times are our worst enemy. At least I am, because I come with really high standard for everything I do. I can be the perfectionist, but the number one thing I learned, and I really wish I learned earlier, is to delegate. Find people that are better doing what you do, or somebody that can get to the level as good as you do, and you can always learn something from them. And that's the saying of, if you want to walk fast, walk by yourself, but if you want to walk far, then walk with somebody else.
Love it. Okay, so it's not always, skipping through the rose petals. Sometimes there are challenges along the way in
Sure.
growing your agency. So what are some lessons that you learned along the way?
I still learn them all the time.
Don't we all?
So like I said, delegate early. Back to my first amazing power partner, she was brilliant in a lot of ways, but she was very much against building a team. I think she kind of got burned out from her previous team staff members, just the way things didn't work out. So she
Mhm.
didn't want us to get a team. And at one point, I was efficient. I was very productive and very good at what we do. But at one point, I was managing like 20 clients all at the same time, and it just hit me. Like
No.
I wouldn't tell my client to continue this path. I just couldn't grow anymore. So delegating was hard, but do it as early as you can. And this program has so many wonderful resources. I wish I knew you like 5 years ago or 7 years ago. It
Yeah.
made my job so much easier. But for all agency owners trying to start the path, just know that you don't have to do it alone and you'll always make mistakes. So don't try to avoid them. Get something out quickly as you can, then tweak it and learn and make changes along the way. And you have communities like this to help you and support you, be your soundboard. And that's one of the biggest lessons I'm still learning.
Yeah. For those of you guys listening, the program and the community that she's talking about is my Done For You Agency program and our groups that we have within that program. One of the big main things that I built the program around is the concept of, building your team of experts from the very beginning, right? Like, because when I started when I started out in 2015, there was a lot of programs and courses out there that were teaching how to become a really great Facebook ads person so that you could then grow a Facebook ads agency. And to me, I thought that was really kind of backwards, right? Because as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking like, okay, but like once you're a legit agency, like is the CEO really going to be behind ads manager? No, right? And like, so you should have an understanding of how, in my opinion, you should have an understanding of how ads work, how the whole process works so that you can be an effective manager. But like Yen said, you should be bringing in, experts, contractors and employees, or, however you want to structure your agency, people that really, really are great at this skill so that your clients get incredible results, and you're able to keep them and retain them, and grow your business that way. And, trying to become an expert at all of the functions of your agency, SEO and PPC and content and social, and then taking on all those tasks on yourself is a really great fast track to burnout, in my opinion. And so, that's one of the main things was that I was like, I'm going to build a really strong network of digital marketers so that the agency owners, that role, when they come into the program, they're able to then partner with these contractors and these white label, partners so that they can have really great fulfillment without having to become that ads expert themselves. And it's helped, so many people grow and able to scale their agency much faster. And, I'm excited to move into the next part of the conversation because one of, the things that you've super excelled at, and I've seen you super excel at within the program and in the groups, is partnerships. And you've been a huge help to the community and partnered with so many of our, different agencies that we have in there by helping them fulfill on different services and partner with them on deals. So, what do you think, in terms of partnerships, how can an agency leverage partnerships to, I guess, advance, their business and get bigger deals?
There are so many ways.
Good. So let's break down a few. What are some ways, I guess, that, an agency, because I will tell you this, when I first started, this was a big area that I lacked in. Like, I didn't even think about partnerships. I was a lone wolf and wanted to, like I said, I wanted to learn the ads so I could do the ads and everything, and it took me years. And then that's when I built the program and said, I'm going to help people skip that mess and go to this, beautiful collaboration phase. So what would a partnership look like in an agency, and how can it help that agency?
traditionally, I think we would both agree, like the way you described, do the things yourself before you hire. I think in a lot of ways was just how traditional agency became to be. And the thing is, the risk for the traditional agency is that headcount, because you don't have your company without people in it. And hiring a person at the very beginning has so much risk. So your program was brilliant in that way, as everything's structured as commission based at the beginning. You're not paying anyone out until you get a paycheck.
Yeah.
The real pressure is only on the sales side, and even salespeople are not getting paid until they close the deal. So
Yeah.
that's one way of leveraging partnership, in my opinion. It really is all of those contractors, salespeople, they are your partners in the company. And with
100%.
partnership, there are different levels as well. Similar to just kind of any industry, you go to the restaurant, tons of options, and doesn't mean each one of them isn't a good fit. I think in a lot of ways, to the kind of cliche saying partnership is very much similar to dating, and it
Yeah.
really is. And you don't have to stick to the partnership, but when you are changing one or choosing somebody else or replacing the partner, it's definitely painful. So I think part of leveraging partnership is also knowing what you want and what's your goal. Without those things, it's really hard. If somebody comes knocking on my door, and I do get a fair number of those every day, just kind of like, how do I become the 7-figure agency, or how do I continue to grow? I actually would sit down, like, let's figure out what are your resources and what are the things you can leverage and how do we get there? It's in a real plan that you can do it, because I really believe in that actionable insight. If it's just stories and tales and hypothesis, what ifs, so that doesn't sell anything. So I think that's a part of it, just to have your own goal, and then your partners leverage all those resources you have to get you there. Don't just think, put a plan on the blackboard as this is my resolution for the new year, and 3 weeks later it probably skipped your mind. That's never going anywhere. So that's another part. Good partners will push you forward. They will always hold you to be the best you can be, and they'll be there to support you. I think those are some of the most important parts, leveraging partnership, so that you have a chance of success, not getting burned out from that overhead immediately. And at the same time, when you need to do something, you actually have the people that can help you figure it out.
100%, totally. I think you highlighted like such an amazing point in the beginning there that I want to just echo, because it's so important. It was actually a huge misconception that I had when I started my agency. And I thought wrongly that you had to have money in the bank in order to hire team members, in order to pay them before you had the clients to give them. And you're right, I built my program the exact opposite way, because I learned better. And I learned that you should actually be doing it the complete opposite way. In my opinion, you should be reaching out to partners, to fulfillment partners, contractors that are great in PPC and website development and, whatever the main services that you want to offer, and establish those relationships before you ever have a lead at the door, right? Like, have someone that can do amazing sites, know their price, know your price if you're going to white label through them, and establish that relationship so that they're ready to go from day one when you sign that client. Same thing in PPC, same thing, across the board for the services that you want to offer, because you never want to be in a situation where you have leads coming in the door and they're like, yes, great, I would love a new website. Thank you so much. I'm excited. You sign the deal, close it, and then you're like, oh crap, I got to go find someone who can build a website now. Like, that's not fun. Let me tell you from experience, that's not fun. And then it's a panic. Everything's rushed. You're going to end up with a partner that you're not happy with their work. And you're going to end up in a bad partnership. And so establish those connections before, and you don't have to pay those people a penny. They are going to be ecstatic for you to come to them and say, hey, I'm going to go do lead gen. I'm going to go do paid ads. I'm going to go do, LinkedIn outreach and everything so that I can give you clients. Okay. Is that cool? They're going to be ecstatic because you're opening up a new, pipeline for work for them. And so you establish those relationships, you get your pricing in line, and then you go do your lead gen after, and you start getting those leads in the door. And then when you close deals, you have those partnerships in place to immediately fulfill at a cost that so that you can pitch effectively with a good profit margin and a work product that you can feel very confident in. Because once you establish those relationships and you see their work product, you understand that that's your work product now. That's what you can deliver, right? And so that then gives you the confidence to then go on your sales calls and effectively sell, quality work, right? And not have that fear of like, oh yeah, I can do that. And in the back of your head going, I hope I can find a guy that can do that. You don't want to do you don't want to do that. That's not ethical or right or good at all. And so you're right. That's why I built the program, to have all those contractors in place so that you can, get with them and have peace of mind knowing that you can produce a really great work product for your leads, and then go out, do lead gen and do big things. Did you have that misconception in the beginning too? Or did you do it the right way with partnerships and
the right way?
I mean, trust me, there's no right way or wrong way. We all have our own learning journey, but I'm just really open with mine. Like, I've come a long way, and now I have a great program with amazing members in it and everything. But at the same time, like, I'm open about my learnings along the way. What was your thoughts on fulfillment? Did you have any misconceptions there, or did you do your own fulfillment in the beginning? How did that start for you?
Do you start 7 years ago? Like, Upwork was super new, and it was actually different from nowadays. What you put together nowadays, I think it were 10 years ago, it was probably not going to work out, because it would be so difficult to find those contractors and people doing side hustle. And now side hustle isn't a thing. Pretty much everybody have side hustles. It's a very different world. When I started, I was lucky because the amazing designer I said that connected me with the power partner, he has a day job. He was brilliant, and he works for the telecom, the movie industry, just creates amazing art, and very good with not just the front end design, but also development and a lot of stuff. So I started my company with connections that are, we call them unicorns in the industry. They can do multiple things. So I always had someone in my pocket that I could call, and then just know if I land somebody, here's the standard I can hold up to. And that was really important to me. One thing I want to add to what you said earlier of leveraging the partnership, having contractors, and you give them jobs that excite them. I think there's also the step up when you work with a really great partner company, like in a white label agency, instead of a number of different contractors. Because imagine you are working with different contractors at the very starting up of your agency. You still have many hats, even without doing all the campaigns, ads, websites. There's endless tasks there waiting for you. So figuring out how everyone's going to react to the client and how projects may have different styles may not be the way you want to grow your company. Versus if you have a team that brings on board suddenly 50 different capabilities, and you know for sure whether it's one client or 10 client, the communication standard is the same. You can expect the same level of professionalism, and that to me was really important. I wish I met a company kind of like ours. If I were starting up, I would be taking that route, to be honest, knowing what could happen along the journey. So it's a different people have different style, but if you really want to leverage partnership, you also have options, starting small with one contractor or finding your partner that can give you a set of capabilities and suddenly put you on a different map.
Yeah, I think that leads me into my next question really, really well. And that is on partnerships. You highlighted that super well of, you don't have to just go, so you can go with one contractor, let's say, John Smith, and he's an expert Google Ads guy, right? But John Smith, expert in Google Ads, he's usually not very equipped in Facebook ads, because he's just built his whole professional freelancing career around Google Ads, and he's super, super great at it, right? And I think one of the benefits of going with him for Google Ads is he's probably going to be on the more affordable side because he's just one guy doing just one service. But there's also cons to that because oftentimes if you bring on a client that needs Google Ads, they don't just need Google Ads, right? They need Google Ads, they need creative. Sometimes they're going to need a better website. If they have, ghost Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and all that, and a lacking social media presence, there are other things that need to be addressed if you're going to truly deliver a great marketing strategy for the client, right? And John Smith,
Yep.
who is great at Google Ads, is not going to be able to do all those other things. So you're either going to have to then hire 2 or 3 other contractors to fill those, capabilities, or you could go with a white labeled agency that has the capability, across the board. I think, there are many cases where John Smith makes a ton of sense and it's great to go with him. And then there's other cases where it makes more sense to go with the white label agency because of the capabilities. I would say in general, from what I've seen, the white label agencies are more expensive, but they usually are going to be because they have all the capabilities, right? It's a one stop for all of those services. But, and then there's the third option, which is having your own team, having your own, in-house team. So looking at those 3 white label agencies, independent freelancers, and having your own team, which setup do you prefer and why?
That's a really difficult question. My previous experience before XYZ was always the building your own team, all W-2 employees with corporate or startup. But then my husband, he's in a very different industry. That was the first time that opened my eye. I did an audit when I was in the MBA program with University of Denver. And I just pitched his company like, I wanted to do a project learning about your business model. And they opened doors, like, sure. So what his company does, they're a reseller in the 3D printer scanner software industry. They don't make their own machine or software. They resell like Stratasys, SolidWorks. Those are the 2 biggest brands in that industry. And the company functions as the sales middleman and provides supports and technical capabilities to make sure those machines and software are being used correctly. So I remember I had my kind of aha moment as you don't really have the product and you can still be wildly successful. There are now, I think, 9-10 figure companies with tons of employees all over the US. So that wasn't the model a lot of agencies can learn. You don't have to have your own team. If you find that brand, the agency, whether it's other contractors' capability or other agencies, and they allow you to use it, use it. If I find a white label partner that's really good at what they do, I think nowadays that we wouldn't consider it, but in those early days, I would totally go that route. Pricing point, as what you're mentioning, is one aspect to be considered though, because contractor John Smith is probably cheaper if he's only doing Google Ads. But in my experience as just the clients I love to work with, I don't want to limit my capability as what they should be implementing for their business. If I'm truly thinking on their behalf, what they would benefit, I need to have an open board. If they come on board saying, this is how much they're making, whether it's $200,000 in a month or something, and they want to double it, you have to be able to allow them to utilize all the channels and the resources available. So if you only have John Smith that just specializes doing Google Ads, that's your only option of offering it. And that may or may not be the best thing for your client. Right. So in my opinion.
And John Smith is almost always going to ask you for creative. Like the ads guys, they never do creative. In my experience, the really great freelancer just do Facebook ads or just do Google Ads guys, they always ask the client, okay, what creative do you have that we can work with? Yep. And then if you don't really have that much and they have to create their own creative, it's usually pretty poor because that they're just, and it's not a negative thing about them. It's just not how their brain works, and it shouldn't. Like it's rare to find someone who's really great at analytical PPC, but also an amazing graphic designer. They're just such different skills that you really shouldn't ask the same person for those things. And when you look at, successful agencies, they never have the PPC guys also over in graphic design. Like in my experience, I really haven't seen that, but that's okay if you have really great designers out there that do that. And that's where that, multiple partnerships come into play, or going the white label agency route as well. What are some common mistakes when looking for an agency partner?
I think pricing, actually, let's go back to just focusing on a little bit more with the people we know in your program, because I get approached a lot about what we offer. And I think one thing people forget is if you're in this program, in Tyler's program, or you're looking into it, they don't put anyone on their pre-vetted contractor list. You actually vet them. You have to have experience. You've done this. You have case studies to be included on it. However, the number one question I get when we get on the call is kind of what's your capability. So I think people overlook a lot of the things besides just the capability. And like I said, choosing the partner in a white label agency or contractor is very much like dating. You do want to make sure you can trust that guy. You can talk to them and you can disagree, and without worrying about they suddenly burn the bridge and never show up again. That's a very important aspect. Because if you're having a contractor and suddenly you couldn't reach them and your client has all those burning questions, it's going to flood you and creates so much stress a lot of times, just kills the passion to continue. I had a conversation with the partner, and I wish we discussed some other aspect of it, because his account with ours was really successful, and he made a point he doesn't ever want to work with anybody else again. But at the same time, he's looking to go back to the agency world because he feels like, we can only help with the large ticket, high ticket client. And he has more aspect in the lower ticket. He just doesn't have the perfect person for those. And that's in a tricky situation to be. So I think picking a partner, if you're in this program, know that any single one of us probably can do a very great job, but we all have different styles. And know that you don't have to pick only one. You can have a whole cassette of it. Like we can all being labeled for, XYZ is really for your enterprise and high ticket clients, versus somebody else is for your medium clients and small startups, or those sole proprietors like yourself. And there are different levels, and use us all. That's how you leverage the resources in this program.
Exactly. I mean, like it's about, and even if you're not in the program, you're just looking at, you're interviewing contractors out there to try and build up, your network. Like just because the one client that you're looking for the partner for right then doesn't necessarily match up with the need of that specific client, still keep them, on your partner list to reach out to when you do have a lead that's going to fit that specific, capabilities or that specific budget range. With them, because that's really what it's about. It's building up those partnerships so that when you have the lead that's going to, be able to effectively use that partnership, you have that, that person there to reach out to.
Exactly. And some people get really interesting about the competitions, like, are you going to compete with ours? I think if that's the concern, then you shouldn't be using them.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's so crazy. And I get people that ask me for, contract templates so that they can lock their white label partner into a contract that says that they can't compete with their clients and everything. And like, I get that hesitation of like, oh, what if they go and contact my client and say that we're the ones that were actually doing the work or whatever. And like, I get that fear, but like, if that is a legitimate fear that you have with the white label partner that you're talking to, then you absolutely, if that's your feeling, your gut feeling, you're 100% right. Run for the hills. Don't even consider working with them. I've never once made any of my fulfillment partners like sign a non-compete because I've been worried about that. And I've never once had that actually happen with any of my agency clients. It's just crazy to think that someone would do that. And I mean, if that does happen, I'm sure it has happened, then you are in a really bad partnership, right? And so it's just like, That's one thing that fortunately I don't think anyone in my program would have to worry about with anybody on the pre-vetted list. If we found that out, they'd be off of that list pretty quickly, right? But it's not something that we've even experienced once so far in the few years we've been here. What does XYZ do differently than most other agencies?
Before I answer that question, because we work with a lot of partners in the program, do you mind, sharing a few things you may have heard from other members? I just want to make sure whether we're on track to stand out for the areas we want to stand out for.
We've heard nothing but incredible things about your fulfillment, your communication that you have. You guys are super highly communicative with your, the white label partnerships that you have is what the feedback that we're getting, which is really, really great to hear. And one of the other reasons why I wanted to have you on here to talk about partnerships, because I feel like you're doing it so right, honestly. We have yet to hear one single negative thing about you. It's all been just absolutely great. Not only landing, helping the white label partners land deals, but then fulfilling at really high levels. So all really great things.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot just hearing those are the echoing sounds like we wanted to produce, to be honest. For me, I think a lot of times we view partnership just the same as client. We have our direct client and we have our partners. Partners are both the people that are on the same boat with you, and they're also our client. So it really is just to find out what they need. And one thing I realized is a lot, with contractors and white label agencies, most of the time, they are not helping with your sales, and business owners are still on the line of close a deal and then hand it over to somebody else. But new agency owners, as you know, and you said it earlier, you're not super excited about the sales perspective. And if they have a lot of amazing leads and they ended up not getting any, sometimes that could turn the agency upside down and they just decided that's not something they're set up for. And I don't think that's the case. So we made it very clear, just kind of understanding what are the needs my partners have, just as if we're approaching them as clients. And I found out real quickly, just most of them do need that kind of sounding board and that person, like I had in my early age, my power partner to close those deals. She was my closer. So I made it possible that we will be your closer. And if you didn't come with the marketing background, don't worry about it. We'll craft your strategy. We'll hear everything you gathered from the client to figuring out what is the best way to move them forward. And if any of those are services we do not offer, we also make it very clear with you as we can fulfill this much. And here are some other names we just know from this group or other groups as resources, so we get the job done correctly. And communication, you mentioned, I think it's such a big part, because especially at the early age of the partnership, if you cannot find your team, you panic. It's really it. So we made a point as long as those are reasonable questions, and no matter how many there are, we can answer it. And I often come to some of the calls with partners talking about they are so frustrated with how many questions the client's asking. I actually think those are great as long as they're just trying to understand what you're doing. It actually educates them, makes them on the same level as those are all the things you're putting into the project, instead of just oh my gosh, this is a high maintenance client, I don't want to work with them anymore. So communication is just one of the things. No matter what your role is in my team, we share our project management tool Asana with you. You will be interfacing with anyone that's on the project right there, and you always get your questions or concerns answered within a couple of hours, if not immediately. So being a partner is just your capability is your foundation, but building on that, finding out what your partner really needs is important. Everyone has different styles and how they want to be presented in front of their client. So we make it a point, we find out how should we represent your brand in front of your clients so we can be a better partner.
Yeah. So for those of you guys listening, Yan and XYZ, they do a lot of white label work for other agencies within my program and out of my program, helping, them fulfill, their client work at really high levels. And one of the things that I think makes a partner like XYZ and like some of the other partners that I have available to the agency owners within my program, what makes them really great is that they make you feel a part of that process. Like it's not a one step removed kind of thing, right? She's talking about, really strong communication and having the agency that sold the deal, be an integral part of the entire thing. So it is a seamless, a team effort really to deliver super high quality work for the client, which I think is really, really awesome. As we come here to this last question, this is something that I ask everyone that comes on my show, and I'm excited to ask you, Yen, what is your biggest piece of advice for a brand new agency owner that is just starting out?
If I were to talk to myself 7 years ago, or people similar to me that are control freak, perfectionist, I would probably say like, yeah, and I hope you're ready to make some mistakes because you will, and that's okay. You just can't avoid it. Learn from it. Try not to make the same mistake twice. But for everyone else, I really think join a program like this, and I really like the community you have built. Tyler, you have such amazing team and resources in the community. Every time somebody has a question, it gets answered by all the members. And it's one of the things, as the main topic we're having today, partnership, resources, leverage it, and join this program and be part of it and provide value before you ask something if possible. You can't build a relationship just to ask. You have to give. And I'm a firm believer. I'm happy to give any advice and sit down with anybody, find out how we can help leverage your resources, or if we can help in a way being a resource to you to help you get to your goals. So do that. Don't try to be the lone wolf.
Yeah, I love that, and that is just one of the things that I absolutely love about the community that we built at the Done For You agency is everyone like you is just so helpful to everybody else. And, I think back and I'm like, gosh, I wish, it sounds so cliche because I'm the one who started the program, but like, I wish I had the program when I started my own agency for myself,
Totally.
right? And that's like kind of the reason that I built it. It was like, okay, what are all the things that would have helped me, right, grow my agency so much faster? And that's kind of how I built it around. But I think you had, two really good answers there to your piece of advice. Everyone, you got a double piece of advice there from Yen. The first one being, don't be afraid to fail. I think is it Facebook saying that's fail hard and fail fast, or one of those big tech companies has that. We're still going to make mistakes like where we're at now and for several years of the future. And if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not taking enough risk, and you're probably not moving your business forward that much if you're not actually making mistakes and learning from them. And the second piece of advice, which I totally agree with, is you can speed up your learning process, speed up your revenue growth and your entire business growth by joining a program that's going to fast track you, right? Whether you join the Done For You agency program or another program, like there's help out there with people that have walked your path before you. And you can super accelerate by following that path and working with other agency owners that are killing it in the same space. So I think those are fantastic pieces of advice. Yeah, and this has been a really, really great show. I had zero doubt in my mind that it was gonna be, but really, really great show. I want to thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm super grateful for being part of your community as well, Tyler. If this helps other people, then I think we got our goal and we achieved something.
100%. Well, thank you so much, guys. And for all of you listening, I will see you on the next episode of Digital Marketing Agency Builders.